Establishment Act with the FEMA camps. Army.mil says they're preparing to re-educate Americans in them for our political beliefs, how they're going to break our families up, but I can't get anybody to go to the document. But some guy shows a train station and says he thinks it's one, and it gets 5 million views when it's not. So then Glenn Beck can say we're making stuff up and show a train station that we didn't say was a FEMA camp, but say we said it's a FEMA camp. So that's why I try to be careful and only report on what we can prove. I know the rabbit hole goes a trillion miles deeper, but how do you deal with this paradox?
Well, first of all, you've got to understand that I believe that we are the most mind-controlled population in the world. I get into that, Alex, in realms I never even touched in my new book, Empire Beneath the Ice. It's fine, and let me just share this. We're talking about this. Peter Goodgame made it a powerful statement, and a lot of people are asking why all this Hitler stuff, and this will answer your question. And I'm going to quote Goodgame, one quick paragraph. The answer to what drove Hitler can be found by examining Hitler's relationship with the occult, his involvement in the dark arts of sorcery and demon or spirit possession. And then Revelation 17:8 says, the beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go forth into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder whose names are not written in the book of life from the foundations of the world. Cloning has been so sophisticated. One of the things that got me in a lot of trouble years ago, and if it wouldn't have been for some brave guys in Austin, God bless you, those people in Austin know who I'm talking about, would have led to an event where I would no longer be on Alex Jones, my show, or anybody's show. The advanced cloning, Alex, I prove, you know this, I footnote everything. I prove it, but I can't overcome, nor can you overcome, or we overcome, the denial of uncomfortability, okay? The people want you to be the tip of the spear, want me to be the tip of the spear, the bow of the icebreaker, you know? And guess what? If the bow on the icebreaker doesn't hit the ice first, meaning that which stands against it, the rest of the ship, you know, won't be able to make it through the ice. So we're living in a world of supernatural, demonic, and I believe a fallen angel infestation, okay? Remember this, everybody you and I quote in the New World Order, the globalists, all these guys are Luciferians. To them, Lucifer is more real than Jesus Christ is to the Christians, okay? Now, I'm not saying that's the case. I'm saying they take their Luciferianism to the nth degree. And talking about baby parts, okay? This is, ladies and gentlemen, the Nazis are the ones who provided Margaret Sanger with her intellectual quasi-supernatural evil. If the devil's goal is to destroy mankind, Alex, and I believe that's what you believe
they
too.
Had to, I agree. They had to betray Hitler. This is all on record, literally, folks, if you look into it. He had to play the bad cop so America, England, and others could play the good cop with the soft eugenics under the table so that people wouldn't see that Hitler was actually just one expression to be defeated, so then their system could come into full power with a global government based on the agreements that were made after World War II for the dollar to be the world reserve currency.
Well, that's true, but remember that in the last days when the Antichrist does show up on the scene, it says that the kings of the earth will give their power unto him.
That's
okay?
right.
They'll fall down and worship him. And what this is something I've got to say. The entity in the slaughterhouse, those are my words for the current American policy, we're seeing now the fulfillment, or forgive me, the inception of Islamic and the, if you will, the return of the Mahdi, and that he can only return after World War III. You know, Alex, people used to say to me, you're crazy, Quayle. There's not going to be a nuclear war. Well, everybody would get us destroyed. Meanwhile, China moves into Syria. Russia's there. We're doing, NATO just moved in its AWACS planes, which is a direct challenge to Vladimir Putin. Putin's given, I believe, every chance for America to step away, but there's an unseen hand, Alex, and it is the devil. It's Luciferianism. And no matter who you quote, I quote, we can take them in context. How many times over the years you've been on talk radio have you quoted all the population control quotes from everything from Cousteau to Prince Philip, you name it, everybody, yet people don't want to admit it. Now we see the geoengineering. Remember how much flack I caught when I first broke that story? and for the record, I'm not taking.
No, it's true. You're the first person I remember breaking that there was atmospheric weather manipulation going on with things being added to the fuel to be dispersed by the engines. You dug out the patents, all of it, absolutely. You and then also Dr. Nick Begich, I think he came after you.
Right. Angels don't play this harp. And the situation is that now we've got Nazi technology. But here's what I want people to understand. Dr. Mengele's driving force was to keep the seed of the Fuhrer going. There's a little town in Brazil that has, I think, 10% of its population, 600 to 700 sets of twins. Claudio Cordo, C-O-D-I-T, and I don't speak Spanish, so I apologize for slaughtering that. But the point being is that twinning was kindergarten. Alex, I've talked to people, I'm sure you have too, and now when every news story on Matt Drudge's site, you know, the point is that cloning is so far advanced in gene editing and the super soldiers, everything now is coming into play. And I said to people, I said, when this stuff begins to be implemented on a global scale, it will come from your left side, your right side, it will come from underneath you, it will come from behind you, and it's basically their idea, same strategy, Cloud Piven, is to overwhelm the system and overwhelm the senses. And I believe that America, even more so than any country, has been numbed and dumbed down. And look, you know, people want to look at sports, fine, but entertainment has nourished and blinded the thinking process of most Americans. Now, the NBA is on an anti-gun rant, and I want to say this. I'm on record as stating anybody who will take your guns away is your executioner. They can't give me any BS. They can't
That's
give
right.
me any
Anybody
crap.
promoting gun control, especially organized media, is a conscious enemy of you and your family who literally wants to break you and destroy you. Now, remember that when you still watch the NBA or the NFL. Remember that when you're not actively out opening dialogues with people, exposing that these people are our enemies.
Absolutely. And again, you know, people forget who really went to work on propaganda. You know, let's look at it realistically. By the way, I put up a story yesterday on my website, Angela Merkel, and that she was the head of the Stasi. She denied it, but CNN backed it up with all their Stasi, meaning East German secret police. Ask yourself, why would she, as the, if you will, the head of Germany, allow the total destruction of Germany? Well, it's because the Illuminati has here's the thing, Alex, the people don't get, is it's order ab chaos. That you're seeing the global chaos now to bring about the New World Order.
Well, absolutely. I mean, look, they can make cats that are part spider. They can make goats that are part spider. For 20 years that you could buy in Hong Kong, glow-in-the-dark monkeys. I mean, I'm showing people mainstream news articles right now. This is not a joke. And I always see comments on InfoWars going, he was talking about glowing cats again today. They won't even go research it. It's mainstream news. This is what's going on.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. You know, when there's a Department of Propaganda in the military, most of those people that'll take you on or me on and all the different I hate Alex, I hate Steve, I hate this, I hate that forums, people who are on those forums have got to ask themselves, what have these people done to inform? Look, your record stands for what it is. My record stands for what it is. They can complain, they can moan, they can destroy our reputations, try. They can do all these things, but they can't account for being wrong for the last 20 years, can they? They can't.
No, they want to change the subject onto us. And I mean, look at this. You speak of the Islamic invasion. I would hear you on this and a lot of others a decade ago and go, they're not really going to use the Muslims, the radical Muslims, to take over. And I knew they were going to have a clash of civilizations. They admitted that. But, I mean, here it is. Organized Europe. Advertisers come in. They actually bring in the Sunni refugees that are the jihadists. They know they're going to attack. Common sense is suspended, Steve. And when they do attack us, they announce that citizens are going to lose their rights. And it turns out the FBI was blocked from going after the San Bernardino people. I mean, they really are going to bring in these proxy armies. How bad is the Islamic invasion going to get of Europe? I mean, what's the end game there?
Well, the end game is the complete dissolution of Europe for, I don't know, a brief time period, and then you're going to see total war against the Muslims. You probably saw Poland said, we'll raise an army of 150,000. I clap and salute. The president of Hungary said, not here. The president of the Czech Republic said, not here. And it's fascinating, isn't it, Alan? Alex, that the idea of those very same people that withstood the Muslim invasion of Europe are withstanding them now. Meanwhile, we just got the news today, you probably saw it, that in those 70-year-old declassified records, it shows that the French government, the Vichy government, was working with the Nazis to exterminate the Jews. I don't know if you saw that story yet.
Oh, absolutely. That's how they took over France. France didn't even fight. The Germans infiltrated them. Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Central, we're here live. Steve Quayle's our guest, about 20, 30 minutes the next hour. I will go to Simon, Frank, Ray, Mike, Chris, and others. By the way, last week I started telling a story on air, a true story that I'd never really gotten into. And then a video was put out about it, and it went viral. I'll put that on TV screen for TV viewers. For radio listeners, I will give you the headline. Assassin brought in to kill Alex Jones dies in police shootout. That was the headline whoever gave headlines that day came up with. The reason I think of this is Steve Quayle talked about a case where some special forces people found out about a plan to kill him about a decade ago, and it got stopped at a public event. That's why Quayle hasn't really been in public or been seen since then. Here's what I want to tell you. Since I mentioned this, I am going to get all the documents together and do a short piece on it. But it's not the kind of thing that you want to give attention to. I mean, it's really weird when you're actually talking about yourself. But I love the trolls on there, you know, saying, oh, that's not true. You know, none of this happened. It's like the time the FBI came here about the Obama deception and was asking about the Obama deception. And then a year later at a trial, it actually came up. It was sealed via a subpoena. I couldn't tell you why they were here. And then, oh, it was true, wasn't it? Well, a couple years ago, the Austin police chief was here to discuss a bunch of issues on air. And he said, hey, you know, we basically stopped some guy coming to kill you 2 weeks ago. He goes, I was too busy to come on, but once this happened, you were asking me on, I came on to tell you. And he goes, you really don't know about this? He goes, well, I can't talk about it, but you'll know soon. And the guy that came here reportedly did this. Last name was Cheney, and they've got the files in there. I was just looking under in the break. And then he came here. They caught him. They couldn't keep him in jail. They ran him out of town. And then the police in California went after him, and he died in a firefight with them, and a house got burned down. I mean, this was in the news in California. I was sent this by detectives there. And so, okay, I'll do a piece on it. But notice the trolls will say that's a lie, because that's what their job is. And people are like, why haven't we heard about this before? Well, because if you haven't experienced this, like my cousin just retired out of the Army, but they were getting stuff from like cartels in their mailboxes saying where they lived and what their family was doing. Until you've experienced this stuff, you sit there in your basements as your little men, and then you point at people in the arena and you tell us what's true and what isn't. Oh, that couldn't be happening. Because until you've experienced all this, you just don't know how real it is. And I'll go back. I wasn't telling the story in a kind of half-baked way, because I just barely, went over it. Because I was talking about the fact that the police were looking out for me. And they weren't using illegal data. They were using social network scrubbing systems to see what people are saying. So it's a weird paradox where the kind of spy system probably saved my life, and I got a cop killed. And then I was just saying it's weird, like, oh, the police won. It's an interesting paradox. And so Quayle talked about that, and it made me think of, we're going to break in a minute and a half. Steve, I'm sorry I'm ranting so much today. It's just that people don't know how real this stuff is. Go ahead.
Again, I thank God for everyone that prays for your safety, prays for my safety, my family's safety. But, ladies and gentlemen, there's a whole group. I had a lieutenant colonel in my office from NORAD, and he was basically telling me with tears in his eyes. I knew him. His father was a former business associate of mine 20 years ago when we did film stuff together. And with tears in his eyes, he said, Steve, we're going to do everything we can to destroy you guys on talk radio. We'll destroy you. We'll put innuendos out there. He said, I can't take it. He said, I'm a Christian. So, Alex, I thank God for the intercept of that. And look, there are people that tell you stuff. I'll say things like, well, a certain general in Special Forces told me, well, I don't believe it. Quayle won't tell his name. Well, he makes this crap up. you know, and sure enough, stuff will happen just like I've been told. Can I tell you something? We're there, Alex. Let me make the bottom line.
Stay there. Come back with the bottom line. 70 seconds. We're going right to you, Steve. Stay with us, folks. Third hour. Steve Quayle, your calls are coming up here in just a moment, but Steve Quayle was about to get to what he said was the bottom line. Steve Quayle.
Well, Alex. Oops.
Yes, go ahead, Steve.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know if the music was still playing if I was on or not. Bottom line is everything that you and I have warned about and others have warned about is in play now. It's no longer a matter of conjecture. It's no matter of being able to say, well, you're gonna see this stuff. It's all playing out. By the way, as we're on the radio today, and it's the 28th of December, Erdogan has just been declared. You're gonna love this. The head of the Islamic world. Now, I don't know who declared him that, but it's being carried in the news, and it's astonishing for that to have happened, because that means that, and I think President Putin's incredibly ahead of the curve. He knows he's going to have a problem with the total Islamic invasion of even Russia, because Russia's bordered by, 8 breakaway republics, or what were breakaway republics that are still very strongly Muslim-oriented. So the fact that that's happening while you and I are on the air, what more has to happen, Alex? Seriously, what more has to happen? And by the way, I went on record 20 years ago as human beings are completely cloned, and I even proposed the thought, what happens if everybody that goes along with the global mandate has already been replaced? In other words, what happens? People say, I don't believe they're that advanced yet. Hey, the Chinese know it. Everybody I've talked to knows it. The original, you, Alex Jones, would be the actual. I, Steve Quayle, would be the actual. But the ones who they would dupe that would basically have our mannerisms, our characteristics, and our downloads of what makes us us, the bottom line is, outside of the spirit that God gave us, they would be almost unknowable. So the point
well, let me say this.
that,
if you listen to all the elites in their own admissions, from Ray Kurzweil to you name it, they say we're going to have new clone bodies and we're going to be Superman and nobody else is going to get to have this. There's a genetic arms race to obtain this, and so much of it's secret. Who knows what they've really got? I mean, 20 years ago, the communist Chinese were cloning cows that were part human to create, human milk. I mean, it's been on the market for a decade in China, at least. I tell the average person in the street that, they laugh at me. Oh, there's a cow that's part human. They won't even Google it, Steve.
I know. Well, here's the thing. I'm praying as your audience increases and my audience increases while we still have breath and the protection of Almighty God, which I thank the Lord for.
Yes.
And I do thank the Lord that the attempt on your life was unsuccessful. But, Alex, listen, every day as things speed up, and it comes at us from all directions, people have got to understand something, that when they go for the guns, they're going for the guns. It will be a blitzkrieg. There you go for a German word. And I can't believe that they got 200, 300 million guns in America. Yeah, but you're not, how do I say this? Most people that are hunters don't know how to take on a Delta team, if you will, or Spetsnaz, or the Chinese.
Well, it's going to be beyond that. They're going to have a Patriot shoot up a school or something, and it's going to be so embarrassing that you're going to be blamed with that if you don't submit and turn in the semi-auto. They admit their plan. Once people agree to one group being banned, then they will start banning monthly everything after that.
Right, and people have got to get it together. This isn't about taking away your guns. They plan to blow the gun owners away. A specific Canadian general was heard on a recorded message. I think Hawk was the one that broadcasted it. And, I know he was. The deal is, basically, here's what the general said. Paraphrase, but it wasn't a tough statement to remember. The Americans don't understand when they go into the camps, they don't come out, and all of their stuff becomes the spoils of war. You know the old statement, you never find a U-Haul trailer behind a hearse? But I think you do intellectually in America. Somehow people think, well, if I just give them my semi-automatic, then I can go back and watch as the world burns.
They want the gun because they want your kids. They want you. They want it all. They want to sit there with the little socialists and all these professors and people literally running camps, kicking our guts in while we're chained down. It's about a power trip for these bags of pus. Steve Quayle of SteveQuayle.com is our guest. His latest book is a bestseller, Empire Beneath the Ice, dealing with all the Nazification of America. We want to be clear. It doesn't mean go after the, quote, minorities. It means a system of social control. Eugenicists are on record saying we're not going to go against certain races or people. We're going to go against basically everybody. And it's a science of social control. I want to go to Simon, Frank, Ray, Mike, Chris, and others. We're going to have our guests at the bottom of the hour that'll get into a bunch of special reports and other key intel we have not yet covered. But, Steve, I've got to ask you this question briefly and then go to these calls. Matt Drudge was here a few months ago, but I've talked to a lot of other people in media, syndicated talk radio, big local talk radio, you name it. For people that don't know, most of even your smaller radio chains and TV chains are financed or controlled one way or another by J.P. Morgan, by Wells Fargo, Berkshire Hathaway. The big one, of course, is Goldman Sachs. They're involved in everything. And I was taken off XM last year, very successful on there after being on like 7 years. I was taken off a lot of medium-sized company radio stations, and they'd say, nope, no problem that you have the ratings, no problem, people love you. In fact, we've had you on here for years. Will you please just not attack us when we take you off? We'll be honest with you. It is a corporate decision. And that's what's going on. And they're getting rid of locals who are on the radio, conservative morning hosts and people. And I've talked to these folks. It's not to bring in newer, cheaper people. They are putting liberals on. They're putting on fake pseudo-conservatives. So here's how the teams work. And we're going to your calls. You'll have one guy who's a pseudo-conservative but kind of loses the arguments. Then you'll have the, quote, liberal. And that's who they're putting on everywhere. And they even tell people, can you do this new format? This is what the consultants say. And what it means is you do what the consultant says, not because you're going to make money or because it's going to be successful. You do what the corporate consultant says because then the ad agency will give you money. So, Steve Quayle, there is a purge of libertarian patriot media. They're coming after the internet as well because we're exploding, because we are hurting them. They can't have this criminal takeover and have the TPP rule America outside of law and do forced inoculations if we're on the air. But don't they get that the transmission already went out to the police and military and others, and that people now know? Don't they get that we didn't just sit here flat-footed the last 20-something years, yourself and countless others, and that we now are in a fighting position? Don't they understand that, Steve Quayle?
I think they're blinded by their rage and the lies they believe, the Luciferian lies, Valhalla, if you will, without any reference to God. It's a spiritual battle, Alex, but it takes place in the physical realm. I think the problem is that the professing Christian church has become the weakest expression of that which the men of faith, the men you and I quote, the men you and I read in the Bible, laid down their lives for. And Dietrich Bonhoeffer withstood the Nazis. I mean, let's face it. There are very few Bonhoeffers in this world. There's a whole lot of kiss or embrace the enemy's rear end people, because Jesus said friendship with the world is enmity with God, okay? But people will choose political correctness as long as nobody messes with their big screen TV or whatever it is. So basically, I call it narcosynthesis. Narcosynthesis has another meaning, but here's how I define narcosynthesis. When, what's his name? Was it Lenin who said the religion's the opiate of the masses? Television is the opiate of the masses. Marshall McLuhan was right. It's not the messages that we see on TV. It's the TV that is the message itself. That's why they call it television programming.
The medium is the message. Yes,
sir. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, that's it. I've got articles here. Man walks off cliff and plummets 60 feet to his death on Christmas Day while distracted by his cell phone. Literally, third world diseases are becoming antibiotic immune, not resistant. All these diseases are exploding. Mass death statistically is increasing. All sorts of real problems. And our elites don't even care because they've got advanced medicines and technologies that basically protect them. It's well known. And it's just crazy that the average person, Steve Quayle, would want to go along with this thinking they'll be safe. I talk to a lot of really famous people, as I know you do, off record. And some of them, I mean, people think of him as, Mr. Tough Guy. But they can't believe that I'm willing to go on air and do this stuff. I talk to so many military people, and I mean, you know, famous special forces people, you name it. They're scared of this system. But I don't get how I'd be scared not to fight it and let it win. I'm not fighting this because I'm full of courage. I'm fighting it because I realize I'm like, you know, a dog in a cage being lowered into water. I need to get out of here. I'm going to drown. I mean, don't they have survival instincts? When you see something like this coming at you, you can't run from this. All you can do is fight it. Where is the fighting spirit? I mean, I know people are waking up, but where's the fighting spirit, Steve Quayle, to really get aggressive with this?
Well, it's mind control, Alex, and it's the numbing and dumbing down, okay? Nobody's at a fighting prime when, number one, they refuse to even acknowledge that there's a war on. Also, the thing is that people have no fear of God anymore, but they have fear of man. And I said this on the radio, and I stand by it. Do you realize everybody who was outed out of the military in their top positions, generals, admirals, etc., took an oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, yet they basically left with their pensions and they went quiet? There's maybe a few exceptions. You know some of them. Now, I know in the background, when all hell breaks loose, so do they, okay? So it's not hopeless. But I can tell you this, the country is totally given over to witchcraft, Satanism, Luciferianism, and globalism. And again, what you're seeing is, you have talked, I've talked, ladies and gentlemen, you're talking 250 million people all in all that have been murdered when global disarmament went into play.
Well, listen, the left is getting really aggressive now, too. They're doing all sorts of dirty tricks behind the scenes. Even their low-level minions are, like, demonically activating, like zombies getting a radio frequency, and I use that as an allegory, and like, false police reports, you name it, starting fights with me in you know, lines at checkout counters because of who I am. They're like, it's their time. They're, like, charging up. They feel their hour is here.
Well, you're correct, and the Bible talks specifically about that, where war is going to be made on the saints, you know. And the thing is, they know, can I say something? They know now they've got legal cover. They know they've got evil spiritual cover. And the problem is the Christians don't get it. They're serious. And by the way, Alex, just as a word of encouragement, you know, the people that you know that are capable of providing you, you know, 24-hour security, I would recommend you update it. I really would. The point being is I've learned something living in the world of death threats and operations, you know, against me is that you cannot take it for granted. You cannot take it for granted. And so just a word, because, you know, I don't know when you and I'll ever be on the radio again together. I don't know what comes down. I can tell you this, World War III is literally one hair trigger away. And basically, Vladimir Putin is probably going to stand out as one of the greatest generals in history. He's given his control, his autonomous nuclear fire control to his field commanders. And if people don't think he's serious, I would say this. You saw what happened when they shot down one jet. Wait until NATO pushes Turkey.
By the way, I want to keep you for the full hour. I want to get into World War III after the callers, if you can stay for the rest of the hour. I want to get into the former head of DIA going public, as you know, 2 months ago and saying our government created ISIS, runs it, premeditated. That's a big act of courage in this land of cowards. Where that's going, and the fact that how this could trigger World War III or the next big war with what Russia's doing. And you're right, Putin has given launch power to the generals in the field. Unprecedented danger. And the average yuppie is just making jokes. The Daily Beast is making jokes. They really all think it's funny. We're going to skip this network break. I want to go to these callers now. Simon in Florida, you're on the air worldwide with Steve Quayle. Go ahead.
Hey, gentlemen. How are we doing today?
We're all right, brother. Go ahead.
Great. The question's for Steve. Steve, we know things will be like they were in the days of Noah before the return of Christ, and I wanted to know what you thought about climate change and geoengineering and what they might have to do with possible giants and changing the atmospheric pressure and oxygen levels to create that.
Well, specifically, I want to get, where we can prove here is that they've come out with the Smithsonian and others have admitted that the jet condensation, not crystals, but the jet fumes are creating terraforming. The Earth is 22 to 31% darker, depending on what area you look at. And it's a big secret program to add the different aluminum dioxide, barium, and other isotopes to the jet fuel through the classic jet engine to disperse and aerosolize. So I want to go back to that question. Thank you for the call, Simon. Why why are they now kind of admitting some of this? And clearly, if they have weather weapons, then they could create Earth calamities to push their carbon taxes. What's really behind this from your research?
Well, first of all, Simon's onto something, and here's the deal, Alex. Geoengineering, and again, an Austin general told me this. It's terror forming, Terror forming. The idea is to do away with humanity as you know it now. The idea is to come up with a, if you will, hybridized a vestige of former humanity and bring in an atmosphere that's similar, which will support the life. Look, you said something that's really, I think, even beyond the depths of what most people can understand. You said it's almost like all the demons have been turned loose. All hell has opened up. And I know this sounds almost metaphoric, and the monsters out there, the two-legged monsters that are terrestrial origin will say, oh, I don't believe all that stuff he's talking about. What Simon, the caller, was talking about is they are actually manipulating the atmosphere to make it inhospitable to mankind, but very hospitable to the genetic mutations and what I call the monsters are making in the laboratories, you know?
Well, all I know is this stuff is all really going on, and if what we know,
right.
I mean, Hillary said taking over the internet is going to be the new Manhattan Project, and she admitted we have many other Manhattan projects. They do, and they're just taking all our resources and building God knows what. They act like they don't care, and then every chance they get, they're massacring Christians all over the world, and it is spiritual. They want to play God. They want to do ugly things. Frank in New York, you're on the air. Thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, my friends. How are you?
Good, brother. Go ahead.
Okay, I have a question for you, Alex, and another question for Mr. Quayle.
Sure, go ahead.
Mr. Quayle, it's a pleasure to talk to you, sir. How are you?
Thank you.
Okay. You guys were talking about, mixing the seed. You know, in the Bible it states, keep my decrees, do not make different kinds of animals, do not plant your field with two kinds of seed, do not wear clothing woven of two kinds of material. These people, and you're absolutely right, these people are Luciferians. I mean, even, when the Garden of Eden, when Eve ate that apple, the devil basically said, you will become God. So these people believe that their salvation is through Gnosticism, that they're going to live forever, which is totally
they're playing God. They're on a total power trip being promised by the God of this world, whether it's real or not for atheists, the archetype, the mass consciousness, whatever you want to call it, it's real. Like Kurzweil said, I don't believe in God yet. I'm going to become God. The globalists believe they're a God, and the God they act like historically is the exact duplicate of Lucifer, the devil. Steve Quayle.
Well, God in the book of Genesis set up barriers and said what he created was good. So every barrier that God created is now coming down. That's what Jesus meant when he said the gates of hell would not
men's
prevail.
Genetics were mixed and all this wild stuff that reads like
Alex,
a science fiction book. I know. The public, I don't think can handle all this. The point is the elite believe it, and then God destroyed all the life to get rid of this abomination. Well, whether that happened or not, folks, and of course I'm a Christian, I know it did, it's all happening again, and the elite are following the Bible to a T, except they think Lucifer is the winner. Steve?
Absolutely. Look, the Vatican, I'm doing, we're doing our True Legends series. My film team just got back from Europe, Rome. And what I'm telling you this, Alex, is what Tom Horn and others, Chris Putnam, you had Leo Zagami on your show, others are saying the same thing. Look, they're ready to announce, whether people believe it or not, they're ready to announce that God did not create us, that we're the alien offspring of extraterrestrials.
And that's what Prometheus is, their real religion. Even the New York Times admitted that. This transpermia stuff. And then expanding on that, they've got the Vatican astronomy and saying, oh, yes, there are other flocks. Oh, yes, aliens. I mean, clearly, is it going to be a Project Bluebeam where they admit they have plans, just like in China, they're projecting these fake cities in the sky to freak everybody out? I mean, will it be real?
Well, it'll be beyond real, okay? Bluebeam and the technology for Bluebeam, that goes back a long time. That's 20 years old plus. I remember talking about that. You started talking about that when you first started your radio career. But the point is that what I'm talking about is the real manifestation, and you're seeing that with Childhoods and, the Arthur C. Clarke that's on the Sci-Fi Channel, where the aliens are cloaked, but they finally manifest themselves.
And they can give you anything and everything you want. That's the inventor of the communications satellite, Arthur C. Clarke, MI6. They give you everything you want. There's a little payoff at the end, though.
Right, and here's the thing. You cannot separate the evil that's happening now from its supernatural origin. One of the differences, I always try and deal with the root of a matter. And when I spend, all the years I've spent on this stuff researching and footnoting it, I can tell you this. I've learned that people can handle it if it's presented in a historically footnoted version. For instance, Empire Beneath the Ice, how the Nazis won World War II. Most people have never stated publicly that I know that the Nazis won World War II. The evidence is there. And yet when we talk about genetic experiments, we talk about weather control. You and I did a show on your show together, I guess an interview on xenogenesis and the idea of sex robots. Okay, look, these guys are perverts. We're seeing every form of mythological, of legendary mixes going on in the headlines. I mean,
they're getting us ready with Facebook having 50 different sexual orientations. So with the chemicals in the food and water, making us behave in artificial ways, we won't even know what to do because our minds have been so scrambled.
Absolutely. And look at the men. There's a scripture, a curse that comes upon a nation that forgets God, that says the men in the midst of thee have become women. Who would have ever thought with the advent of the birth control pill and the estrogen going into the water systems of the world's, those who are at least in the Western world, look at what's happening to the pretty much the Western world, and especially, and this isn't a racist statement, but eugenics was aimed at the black community, and thank God there's a lot of really smart blacks out there that are listening to you and listening to me on that. But the birth control, you probably quoted it. The former head of Morocco made the statement that the ultimate weapon of the invasionary forces of Muhammad would be the wombs of their women. So now you've got, and by the way, I don't call them immigrants, I call them invasionists, okay? The idea of hundreds of thousands of people coming into this country that cannot be screened, are not being screened, and are being armed. Alex, all the weapons, all the ammunition that you and I carried the stories on, that's all in strategically placed warehouses for the armies of the Mahdi, which are already within our border. It's not when it happens, it is when it happens, but the more important question is, watch it happening before your eyes. It should be the ultimate wake-up call.
Well, I want to go back to calls. It's all I know is the elite believe in all this bizarre occult stuff. They believe they're communicating with entities that are giving them advanced knowledge. You look at all the stuff that's going on around us, all the technology. You look at how everything's hidden and it's basically a fraud right behind the scenes. And I can't even get the general public to admit that there are emergency centers that have already been built at military bases, which the Army.mil, we'll put the internment camp document up, says we're going to, quote, re-educate Americans and how they're going to process their Social Security numbers. I mean, I wish none of this was true. And then anybody in the know, it's a weird paradox, Stephen. I'm going to go back to calls, but it's woken up the military, especially mid-level and high-level, because they now have to know it's real because they might go operational. They know the cover story's bull, but then the general public doesn't know about it. So it has had the effect of waking up a lot of people in the government, which is paradoxical. You think of the government as the enemy under a corrupt system, but actually it's one of the more awake groups because they are not as compartmentalized. And so I just don't see where this goes. I don't see the globalists are in as good a position as they would like us to believe, except then it doesn't matter how out in the open it is to us, because for the people in a trance, it doesn't even matter. So it's just, wow. I mean, what an exciting time to be alive, Steve.
Well, it is, Alex. And again, the thing is that the best we can do is by the grace of God and the love that God has for his creation that he doesn't want to see destroyed. The Bible says God's people perish for lack of knowledge. Well, we give them the knowledge, but their hearts have to become alive, okay, to the truth. The truth is so foreign now. Look, we have the greatest manifestation of lies coming from the U.S. government that's ever taken place, and people take it as, if they say it's got to be true. You can give all the statistics on gun control. You can show all the pictures of people being shot in the head in trenches. But to the liberal, the agenda, okay? Listen, the liberal mindset is like Michael Savage says, in my opinion, it's a mental disorder. And what's happening is that you have almost a universal nightmare of denial going on in the masses. But that's exactly what the globalists, the Satanists, the Luciferians, and the devil himself want. You know, the best
their whole goal, you know, I haven't read Childhood's End in probably 20 years. Yeah, and Arthur C. Clarke was MI6. This is literally their plan, except it's humans thinking they're going to become a god and merge with it. But you take out the aliens, it's Childhood's End. That's their plan.
Well, absolutely. But also, look, we know that the Antichrist, the person who Antichrist means takes the place of Jesus Christ. Jesus said, I came here, receive me not, another will come claiming to be me. That's why they need this false world war. They need the World War III, which then the Antichrist will claim is Armageddon, and he now is the Christ in place of Jesus Christ. And the point is that it's a spiritual war. But unfortunately, Alex, all the prophecies of Isaiah, Jeremiah, Zechariah, you know, Daniel, Hosea, Amos, all the Old Testament prophets, we're in the times right now that they prophesied, and people say, I don't believe all that stuff. Well, then you explain to me how this could all come about with a global mind outside of an entity apart from that global mind orchestrating it. I call it the symphony from hell, and Lucifer is its conductor.
And everything they're doing is pushing an end to your individual consciousness and buying into this larger consciousness, but it's not a good consciousness you're buying into. It's pure death. It hates you. More calls coming up. But supernatural would be radio 1,000 years ago. Supernatural just means something that isn't known, isn't in the visible light spectrum. But I was thinking about the allegory of Childhood's End, and we're going back to your calls because Steve Quayle brought it up, then I'm going to get into the whole World War scenario with Russia. But if you look at that plot of Childhood's End, not the miniseries, I haven't seen it, but I'm told it's different on Sci-Fi Channel, but the book itself, written by the inventor of the communications satellite and a bunch of other stuff, MI6 futurist, MI6 mastermind, the late, great Arthur C. Clarke, you realize that all of his books were an allegory, and he actually wrote essays on this, admitting it. That like 2001 is a parable because, you know, only one human transcends and goes to the Stargate, and he's got to defeat the AI first, the artificial intelligence, his own creation, which the elite admit they expect to have a battle with. I mean, these people, this is a religion, folks. This is all planned out. And then if they can create AI, harness it, control it, then they're going to go and be these star children, and the new son will be born Lucifer. I mean, that's the plot of those 3 books. Gee, I wonder what he's telling you when the new star is called Lucifer, the new God's born. The humans go to the dimension, come back, ignite the sun. They're a new God. And they said they can take us there. They got a brand new God. And they can slay us there. They can kill us there so we can be reborn. They got a brand new God, brand new God. That's what they're telling us. And that's it. Oh, free health care. Oh, free goodies. Oh, free shots. Oh, we're going to help you. But it's not even like Childhood's End where they give you the shot and you live an extra 100 years. They give you the shot, you fall down, start having convulsions. That's how incredible the mind control is the inserts on the vaccines say they don't protect you, say they can kill you, say they can give you all these disorders, lowers your immunity to the flu. And people look at me and they go, that can't be true. The system's good. And I go, just read the insert, please, please, please. They go, no, I'm not going to. And there is that mass Stockholm syndrome. My term. Mass Stockholm syndrome. And again, it's that paradox of most people that actually work in the CIA or the FBI or all these different agencies or contractors themselves are either ideologues who are compartmentalized and believe what they're doing, or they're completely freaked out, completely whacked out, and completely scared. And they're just trying to do the limited amount of bad they can. That's not going to save any of you people. We're going to go to your calls. Ray and Mike and Chris and Karen and Maya. Steve Quayle, stevequayle.com is our guest. You can look at Steve Quayle's view of the world and say, man, that's pretty far out, some of it. But I thought it was basically 50% far out 20 years ago. Now I think it's like 10% far out. But the point is, whatever the truth is, every time we finally learn it, it's even freakier. And I go back to that paradox, Steve, and we're going to these calls. How is it, I've noticed this, that if I have an actual Army.mil document that's on Army.mil saying that they are preparing hundreds of thousands of employees and private contractors to man emergency centers with re-education camps for the American people. In fact, guys, just type in re-education camp Army manual. No one attacks me on it. No one says it's not true. There's no Rachel Maddow. There's no CNN. There's no... They'll just go make up something I said and attack that straw man. They'll never. They know it's real, FM 39-40 and others. But they won't even address it. I mean, you've been around these people. I mean, I've been around them. What's weird is, at that level, though, they're so sycophantic and such cowards. They're not like some special forces captain or colonel or general, totally freaked out, hiding out in the middle of nowhere with their family because they know too much. At least they don't love it and think it's cute because they're real people. It's these soft, weird cowards are the ultimate progenitor of the takeover. They're giving birth to it because they never were on hard times. They never got beat up. They never went through real hell. They never saw real evil. They're divorced from it, sitting back with the instrumentality of high-tech enslavement, playing the instrument like they're virtuosos, proud of themselves, not seeing that they stand in the jaws of a huge, stinking, red-eyed anglerfish that is their papa, but it isn't their papa. I mean, they don't get that at the top of the pyramid, you can smell the death. You can see it. Those of us, it's just like, oh, my God, the smoke coming out of it. I mean, I don't even want to get close to it. It just reeks of directly out of the pit of hell. I mean, death to this planet, engineered spiritual virus meant to shut us down and kill us. And then they just sit there hopping around, rejoicing when they're the biggest schmuck, chump, idiots I've ever seen in my life. I mean, they are such born losers that they think they're actually part of the winning team, when history and everything shows, and what's currently happening, that this system will personally tear its minions apart because they're totally unprotected spiritually. I mean, I just don't know how they don't see the incredible peril they're in, because they're such cowards. But they're so cowardly, they convince themselves they're safe when they're in the most dangerous position they could be in. Go ahead, my friend.
Well, first of all, Alex, you know, I couldn't agree more wholeheartedly. And even passages in the Old Testament talk about all these rich and powerful people when they are in hell, and they see Lucifer there too, and they're saying, is this the man that caused the nations to tremble? I want to draw attention to something I received today, and I think it just received it a couple hours ago, so I want you to, I just posted a couple hours ago. It's a conversation, one paragraph about what they're doing to come take the guns away, okay? It's between a guy named Jim and Michael. The guy said, Steve, I sent a friend the link, the story about the testing gun confiscation in Illinois. He worked for the Sheriff's Department for 25 years. Here's his reply today. I would have said there's no way this is going to happen. My son worked with a man that told her his son, a Marine, was training for gun confiscation in a war in the boundaries of the U.S. His son has been training down south, and the dad spoke with him before November. And this was what the son told Dad. Time to make sure your kit, in other words, your prepper supply, are ready and sound. Civil War II is almost ready to start. It sounds to me like it sounds to me. When do you want to sit down and talk? Question mark. God help us, Michael. So, Alex, the thing is, look, we've laid out over and over and over thousands of hours of broadcasts, thousands of documents, thousands of news links, thousands of interviews, okay, literally, and telling people from insiders this is coming. And it's, you know, it's the four monkeys. Hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil, and certainly don't speak out against evil.
And now it's manifesting openly as they prepare to go operational. And I'm going to say this. Make no mistake. We're here at the castle gates. There's holes knocked through the armored door. There's flames shooting out. There's rocks being hurtled over. And then we're sitting here with countless other patriots around the world, every race, color, and creed, trying to hold the gates up. And then all these trendies are sitting around bitching going, I don't see any enemies. I don't see any problems. I don't see any takeover. Waiting for those gates to crumble and fall. Undoubtedly, if it wasn't for Ron Paul and countless others, patriots out there over the years, exposing this from Barry Goldwater to you name it, we'd already be in this system. So I love how we're trying to hold it back. Undoubtedly, the globalists admit what the New World Order is about 15 years behind. And then they're bitching at us, and now we've finally been pushed back. We're sliding. World government's being announced. We're all being verified. That's why they're bringing in the censorship now to shut us up and shut us down, because now they know our credibility is about to explode. How do you see the brakes on this? Then we're going to calls.
Well, you know, I can tell you something. Mushroom clouds speak louder than piss-poor excuses, okay? I'm sorry for the word, but that's the only way I know how to explain it right now. Alex, it is insanity that people are hearing World War III, seeing World War III, hearing about overflights of different nations' bombers and submarines off our coasts, and still you've got a guy that goes on vacation and the Middle East is inflamed, and people, you know, I got to tell you something. Assad of Syria is the only guy standing up for Christians. The point is that if you can't even put 2 and 2 together to equal 4, we go into Iraq, we totally destabilize it. We go into Libya, we totally destroy it and destabilize it. We have destabilized, but it all fits the plan of global upheaval. In that global upheaval, a Western nation that turned from fighting terrorism has now turned internal, and all of the terrorists are inside the gate. The barbarians aren't outside the gate, and what we're fighting for is the last life, the last husband who gets it, the last wife who gets it. We're saying, God, people, and I'm saying, I'm praying, not using the name of the Lord in vain. I'm saying, God, help the people's eyes to be open. But the bottom line is when people embrace the occult, I can tell you this, Alex, and I got to share this. I lay it out so clearly in Empire Beneath the Ice, how the Nazis won World War II. You cannot separate the darkest forces, everything that you consider evil, that you articulate as evil. You cannot separate that from what's going on in our government. And they brought it with
selling the baby parts, funding the radical ISIS to kill the Christians. You see our government go out of its way to do evil things, even though it hurts the interest of those elites, because it's not about money. It is about prosecuting a war and an old score. And so it's ancient Russia, it's ancient Syria. Not that they're even perfect, but they know in the globalist plan they are slated for destruction, so they are fighting because they have not been fully taken under the spell of the New World Order. Let's go to some calls here. Very well said, Steve Quayle. Let's talk to Ray in Iowa. Thank you for holding. Up next, Mike. Go ahead.
This is Ray in Iowa.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Hey, listen, blessings, my brothers. I had a question. I was stationed over in Germany during the Cold War, and, you know, a lot of the rumors were that Hitler had gotten out of there. In fact, you had talked about that earlier in the show, Steve Quayle, that you had been following that on the History Channel, Hunting Hitler. And I had been kind of following that as well. And I guess my question would be at this point is, certainly Putin or the Russians must know that he got out of there. I mean,
they do.
They have, excuse me?
Yeah, they do. Stalin said that, and I'll quote Stalin, that bastard got away. And that's what even Putin, you know, you're really onto something here. Putin made claims about they're not going to sit back and watch the resurrection of the Nazis. They will not sit back and do it. So what I think you're going for, caller, is the fact, yes, they do, and Putin is starting to blow the lid. My guess is he's going to blow the lid on the whole Nazi control.
And by the way, they studied that Hitler skull. It was a female skull. It's not even a male skull.
Eisenhower said there's no evidence Hitler died. And then, look, even hunting Hitler, for the record, Alex, I started my book 8 months before the first story broke on Hitler. So I would say this. I would say that people need to understand the occult, the Luciferian agenda. You cannot, the Nazis opened the first stargates beyond the ancients, okay, in contemporary time, and people say, well, I don't believe in that. Well, it doesn't matter what you believe in. Every Native American site in the United States around the world has spirals indicating Stargate. So I didn't mean to cut the caller off, but he's really onto something. And the Russians are ready to play that revelation soon, in my opinion.
Well, you notice Putin's coming out saying global warming is a plan to take over the world and enslave everybody, that the Western governments run the drug trade. I mean, Putin is exposing everything, and he wasn't doing that just a few years ago. But when they started shutting down Russia, putting the sanctions on, he really is spilling the beans on them. Who do you think Putin is, and who are the Russians in this whole history? Because in mainline evangelical CIA-run influence Christianity, I'm not bashing evangelicals, that's who they targeted because it's such a good group of people, they try to pump that Russia's the enemy. And obviously
right.
Russia was a globalist evil created by the globalist. The Soviets were horrible. Communism is horrible. You look at what we have here today, that's exactly what they're now establishing. But what has Russia become now?
Well, I think Putin has gone back to his Christian, when I say Christian, Russian Orthodox roots. I think he's shown remarkable restraint. I also believe that you've seen basically a topsy-turvy, where the United States used to, quote, be Christian largely, you know, and no matter what the entity says, we were founded at least on Christian principles. The idea is that Putin now has the head priest of the Russian Orthodox Church blessing his men and blessing their takeover. He knows he has to stand against the Islamic hordes and invasion. Also, Alex, I go on record as stating this. 10 years ago, I said everything I got in prayer from the Lord over that decade ago was that America becomes a hissing and is held in total contempt around the world. That's what you're seeing right now.
And that's always been part of the larger plan, is have us carry out the globalist agenda. Then we get the blame. Then the EU and the Chinese basically merge, giving us the blame for everything. And I do see in some of their plans, they do want to knock the U.S. out and Russia out in the end.
Well, Russia knows the Chinese are its biggest adversary. And let me share this. Strange bedfellows and the enemies, you know, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. That only goes as long as, you know, you have a mutual enemy. Russia knows that it cannot compete with China's industrial base from the standpoint of sheer amount of population. But Russia leads in high-energy physics and weapons. They have some of the most sophisticated systems. Their fighters aren't built with Chinese parts. The point being our F-35 is. And look, every time, whether it's a Donald Cook forcing a nuclear sub-boomer to surface or taking out aircraft, the Russians are saying, don't you understand what we can do? So I think Putin, I don't think he's rushing headlong into nuclear war, but I believe he knows that this government, under the control of the entities behind the curtain, are pushing for nuclear war. And he has a philosophy. I want people to hear this. The Russian philosophy is you strike first.
Well, if you expand and look at all of this, we have crazy people running this country. And they really are out to get anybody who's self-sufficient. I mean, that's what it comes down to. They want you under their cult control. Let's see who's been holding the longest here. Let's go to Mike and then Chris. Mike, you're on the air from Texas. Welcome.
Thank you, Alex. I just wanted to know if you or Steve Quayle have heard of Dr. Stephen Greer. He is trying to expose a secret government that handles all the secret bases and things of that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm aware of that. Look, here's the deal. I can't get people to look at the National Security Act of 1947 that's public, or the NGOs, or the continuity of government programs. It's all there and admitted. And all the people I see always talking about secret bases, this, stuff, that, it's all conjecture and hearsay. And then no one will look at all the admissions of what Eisenhower warned about in 1961 in his farewell address of the technological elite in a breakaway civilization. Rob Dew is coming up hosting the 4th hour, and he's got a ton of breaking news and information he's going to be covering. I want to try to go to more of your calls in this segment and the next. I'm not going to belabor this, but you hear my sponsors when I'm endorsing a product by name, and you also hear the products that I endorse that we sell at InfoWarsStore.com. The radio network are great folks. They've got their sponsors. I'm sure a lot of them are great. I can't speak for them. When you hear me say that Survival Shield Nascent Iodine X2 has changed my life, it really did. When I talk about what Super Male Vitality, just a bunch of known organic cold-pressed herbs, has done for my energy, my libido, my weight loss. I mean, it's been staggering what's happened. Super Female Vitality. I mean, just give it a try. and then you're funding the operation. But I believe you're going to come back and get more because almost everybody does because it's so good. We have 15% off throughout the whole store. That's what it is with promo code at the end of it. Promo code GIFT15. But it's to encourage folks to use those gift cards that most people don't end up, using all the money off of them. Because you're not habitualized like with cash or a credit card. You just stick it there and then never use it. Use those gift cards, get great products, help fund the InfoWar. And if you want to fight the globalist, get a non-GMO seed pack, fruit trees. We've got everything at InfoWarsStore.com. Plant a garden. You're like, well, I don't live in the rural area. Well, they'll have garden organizations in your area. Or go out in the middle on the side of the highway and plant stuff. Guerrilla planting is going on everywhere, where people are planting fruit trees, you name it, on the side of the highway. They're growing. They're doing great. I mean, this is really cool stuff you can do to plant the opposite of what the globalists are planting, these devil plants that don't produce seeds and, spread all these bad genetics. InfoWarsStore.com, InfoWarsLife.com. And the Hillary for Prison shirts are selling out. They're a limited edition. There are a few sizes left, InfoWarsStore.com. We've got Steve Quayle with us. Let's go ahead and take another phone call for him. Let's talk to Ned in Oregon. You're on the air with Steve Quayle.
Yeah. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Go ahead.
I'm glad I got a chance to talk to both of you. I wanted to have you address both of you. I know AJ is involved, has known about David Icke for a long time, how David Icke's reptilian interaction and Luciferian thing keep on going on that direction. I still think that those reptilians are a big part of the problem. And I'll take the answer off air. Thanks.
Well, here's the deal, and I'll get Steve to comment on this. I don't get into space aliens. I don't get into all that. The elite act like vampires. The royal family in England is Transylvanian, related to Vlad the Impaler. You can't make that up. A lot of dead kids have been dug up on their property. David Icke, 20-something years ago, was accusing them of killing kids. And 10 years ago, on my show, was naming names of people like Savelle at the BBC, saying, he had sex with dead kids and they slit their throats in front of the prime minister. And I remember delaying David Icke and saying, you can't say that on air. Okay? And then it all came out was true. So at this point, I mean, Katie barred the door, who knows? But they might as well be 8-foot-tall blood-drinking lizards. I mean, they act just like them. I mean, whether they are or aren't, might as well be. Steve Quayle?
Well, I got to tell you something. I think that's evil light compared to what's coming upon the earth. Jesus said, men's hearts failing them for fear of looking after those things coming up on the earth. Alex, again, I'm trying in the last how many months of freedom we have. If it goes 5, 6, I don't know. Next week, next year, I don't know. But what I do know is this: our time of being able to inform and the people's time of being able to prepare it's a clash of the titans. And they'd better make the best use they can. And by the way, I think, and I'll say this on your show, this is the last book I'm writing. I basically, I think I've covered it all. It is the end result. It's the, if you will, it's both the root and fruit of the evil coming upon the earth, the empire beneath the ice. And the deal is, from now on, I'm going into videos, true legends. Because
stay there. I want to come back to you. Final segment, then we hand the baton to Rob Dew. Spread the word, folks. Tell people tune in. We got to get out of our trance. We got to get people awake that a lot of stuff's going on. Empire Beneath the Ice, available exclusively at SteveQuayle.com. I'm Alex Jones, your host. Infowars.com is our main site. A lot of big news is broken there in the last hour I haven't gotten to. David Spade, Obama should have more dignity than to appear on reality TV. Why does that matter? So many Hollywood stars are going public against the Obamas. Kurt Russell for the Second Amendment, you name it. It shows there's major rumbling. And people don't, I always told you, they don't want to be Republican or Democrat. They want to be libertarian. They want to be patriots. What did Kurt Russell say word for word last week? So there is a lot of craziness going on, ladies and gentlemen, but there's also a good Lord above. Let's go ahead and talk to John in Australia. You're on the air with Steve Quayle. Go ahead. Do me a big favor. Yeah, just turn your radio off, and we'll hear from you. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Wait, just give me a sec, please.
Yeah, 101 a radio, folks, is you got to turn that radio down, pretty much off, or it'll create